I am Pragya and I bring to you excerpts from the year-ender issue titled We Bear Witness. The issue is dedicated to the people of Gaza and what they went through. The Inner Monastery by Hussein Barghouti. Author, scholar and thinker Hussein Barghouti, diagnosed with lymphoma, returns to his childhood countryside near Ramallah in Palestine in 2004 after 30 years in exile. Among the Almond Trees is a poignant, lyrical, philosophical reflection on life and death, art and politics, love and hope. This excerpt is about a monastery atop a mountain he used to visit as a child. My mother was an orphan and for a time had danced and sung at the festivals of the local fellahin. She was adopted by an uncle called Kadura, a giant of a man, quite robust. He lived with his brother, I believe, in this very monastery. They were armed robbers. Whenever a cow or a mare disappeared, everyone said it was at the monastery, where no one dared to go. One moonlit night, as he was riding his donkey back home, a rogue snake struck Kadura's right foot. He leapt off at once and jumped about until the snake withdrew its fangs. By the time he arrived at the monastery, he was exhausted and may have died right where I'm standing at this moment. When I was a child, my mother swore she had seen that rogue snake flying over the moonlit mountains, thrilling with joy for having killed Kadura. The Kasaba snake had horns like an old bull, she told me, and its hiss made the dry shrubs shiver. The notion of the memory of place came to mind as I stood there among the ruins. To the west, at the summit of a mountain covered with a forest of pine, cypress, and oak, shine the bright halogen lights of the settlement that the Israelis call Halamish, and we, the Nabi Saleh settlement. Coal floodlights and barbed wire everywhere. The settlement seems to be afloat in space, perhaps because of the bright lights, as though it hasn't yet touched land or history. What does a settler from Russia or Estonia, who arrived perhaps no longer than a year ago, see when he opens his window and gazes at these mountains where I'm now standing? What will he see and comprehend of these mountains floating over the history out of which they have risen? He will certainly not see the snake that flies and trills, hear its cry, nor learn the secret that urges the one suffering from cancer to go wandering among the ruins at 1 o'clock in the morning. He will not touch history, even if he were a soothsayer. Not my history, anyway, even if he were a god. As I stood there among those ruins, I felt there was an enormous difference between the two kinds of light, moonlight and the halogen light flooding out of the settlement. The latter is focused and oppressive, its glare extreme, reaching even beyond the barbed wire that isolates every such settlement from its environment. It is more like an armed vision, an occupation by means of vision, and the visual architect of a state in the delirium of armed visions lit by halogens, even in its sleep. The settlement as a whole seems like a book about the soul, or about the relationship between light and power. No one has yet studied the relation between light and power. For this and more, read the year-ender issue of Outlook.